Hey everyone, and welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're doing something a little different. We are decoding the ultimate blueprint of life. So instead of just looking at nature on a surface level, admiring the view, we're actually going to untangle the complex underlying mechanics of how organisms and physical forces actively drive our world. From the tiny micro-interactions of a single species, all the way up to the massive forces of natural selection. Let's dive right into the ecological matrix. Here's a quick look at our roadmap for today. First, we'll define our environment, then move into the actual science of ecology and climb the ecological hierarchy. After that, we'll unpack ecosystems and ecotones, and finally wrap up with adaptation and evolution. Sound good? Let's get started.
All right, Section 1, Defining Our Environment. This is basically setting up our physical stage.
Have you ever wondered where the word environment actually comes from? It roots back to the French word environner, which literally means to encircle or to surround. So it's not just, the trees outside your window. It is the complete, inescapable context of a living being. It encompasses absolutely every single physical and biological factor that's going to interact with an organism during its entire lifetime. It's the whole shebang.
Now, broadly speaking, we navigate two main types of environments. On one hand, you've got the natural environment. Think oceans, forests, those unyielding natural forces. And on the other hand, we have the human-made or artificial environment. Sprawling cities, urban heat islands, skyscrapers, all of that. Both of these completely encircle us, but as you can probably guess, they're driven by vastly different developmental forces.
If we break this down a bit further, the natural world operates in distinct physical layers, right? You've got the atmosphere up above, the lithosphere under our feet, the hydrosphere for all the water, and the biosphere where life actually exists. But notice how our human constructs, our roads, our economies, our communities, they're all directly plugged into this system. We really don't exist outside of the natural spheres. Actually, it's more like we are just one massive interconnected gear, turning within the exact same machinery.
Moving on to Section 2, the science of ecology. If the environment is our stage, this is how we study the play.
Now, the term ecology was actually coined way back in 1866 by the German zoologist Ernst Haeckel. It beautifully blends the Greek words oikos, meaning household, and logos, meaning study or discourse. What Haeckel did here was absolutely crucial. He effectively shifted biology from just looking at animals in a vacuum to studying our global household. He started analyzing the intricate relationships of organisms with their environment and, of course, with each other.
Ecologists tend to view this massive household through two distinct lenses. First, there's autoecology. This is hyper-focused on a single individual or species. Like, imagine a conservationist trying to figure out exactly what one specific type of endangered fox needs to survive. Synecology, on the flip side, zooms out to the macro level. It looks at the interactions of groups of species, mapping out that complex web of who's interacting and competing within a shared community.
And that brings us to Section 3, the ecological hierarchy. Let's take that macro to micro approach. Think of this next part like a camera physically zooming out. We start at the very bottom rung of the ladder, with the organism, just a single individual. Now, group a bunch of those together, they can breed, and boom, you have a species. Put those members in the exact same place at the same time, and they're a population. Throw in some totally different species for them to interact and compete with, and you get a community. Now add in the non-living physical terrain around them, and you've just built an ecosystem. Keep zooming out to massive regional climate units like a desert or a tundra, that's a biome. Put all those biomes together, and you have our biosphere, literally the entire living Earth.
All right, Section 4, ecosystems and ecotones. Let's zoom back in on where these boundaries actually meet.
Now, I want to pause here for a second, because it is so easy to mix up the three E's: environment, ecology, ecosystem. Let's clear that up right now so we're all on the same page. The environment is simply the physical surroundings, the stage. Ecology is the scientific study of what happens on that stage. And the ecosystem? That is the actual functioning unit. It's the localized group of living organisms reacting in real time with their non-living features.
This dynamic engine of an ecosystem is a concept that was first named by Sir Arthur George Tansley in 1935, and it relies on an absolute, unavoidable interdependency. The biotic components, so living things like plants, fish, animals, they are completely dependent on the abiotic, non-living factors. I'm talking about physical factors like sunlight, inorganic substances, temperature, soil chemistry. They don't just exist next to each other, they operate as one single unbreakable unit. But within that ecosystem, we also really have to distinguish between a habitat and a niche. Here is the easiest way to remember this. A habitat is basically a species' address. It's just where they live. A niche, though, is their job description. It includes their specific food, their geo-ecological factors, their reproductive roles, basically everything they do. And here is the kicker. While many species can share an address, absolutely no two species can have the exact same job description. If they try, nature quickly initiates an evolutionary layoff. One species is simply going to outcompete the other.
But honestly, the real drama happens at the borders. We call these ecotones. These are those intermediate tension zones where one ecosystem abruptly crashes into another, like a dense forest suddenly meeting a wide-open grassland. And because these zones kind of borrow species and elements from both of the bordering ecosystems, they boast surprisingly high biodiversity. It's a phenomenon known as the edge effect. These ecotones are absolute evolutionary hotspots.
Finally, Section 5. Adaptation and evolution. How do the actors survive when the stage changes?
So to survive in these ever-shifting environments, organisms have to rely on adaptation, and this generally happens in three main ways. First, structural. Think of desert foxes evolving those massive ears to radiate body heat. Then you have physiological adaptations, like the incredible kangaroo rat developing highly efficient kidneys so it can survive without literally ever drinking water. No way, right? And third, behavioral adaptations, like emperor penguins actively crowding and huddling together to survive those brutal Antarctic winters.
Now, over vast periods of time, these distinct adaptations compound into what we call evolution. Proposed by Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace, we know this isn't just some random process, it is driven by natural selection. It's like nature effectively audits the ecosystem, selecting and passing down only the specific traits that are best suited to survive the current, unforgiving blueprint of the environment.
And that leaves us with a pretty critical final thought. We know species can adapt, we've seen it. But a mass extinction occurs when Earth loses over 3/4 of its species in a very short geological window. So what happens if an ecosystem's blueprint changes way too rapidly, say due to sudden human-induced environmental shifts? Can its inhabitants actually adapt fast enough, or are they just destined to be wiped from the board entirely? It's a profound question to chew on next time you look out at the environment around you. Thanks for hanging out with me on this explainer, and I will catch you in the next one.